All right, everybody, I know it has been a while since I last did some Asian football videos on the channel, but at long last, we have a video here for you all today. Unfortunately for us, it's going to be a little bit of a sad video because all the Asian national teams have been eliminated from the 2026 World Cup. So for this video, we're going to go through every single Asian national team that played at the World Cup and give them a grade from F to A on how they did at this World Cup. It's really unfortunate because the Asian national team started off this World Cup really well. I thought we were going to see maybe one to maybe two deep runs from our fellow Asian national team homies, but it didn't unfortunately happen. And while I know there's so much discourse talking about how there needs to be a change from the Asian Football Federation, but in my opinion, and maybe for some of you all, I feel like it was more so the individual national teams' issues for a variety of reasons. I don't think it is just one problem that fits all the Asian national teams. I think each one had its own problems that caused them to not reach the heights that we would have expected for certain national teams to achieve at this World Cup. But of course, I'll get into that for each national team throughout this video. But before we get into it, boys and girls, if you guys are a big fan of Asian football, but more specifically the Iranian national team, this is the channel that you need to be at going into the 2027 Asian Cup. It's going to be fast approaching. It's less than 6 months away. So make sure to subscribe because we're on the road to 7,000 subscribers by the end of this World Cup. So make sure to subscribe, smash the like button on this video. Let's try to get over 300 likes to show our love to the Asian national teams during this World Cup campaign. And maybe we'll have an absolute revenge arc 4 years down the line. I know that's a long ways away, but who knows? And then throughout this video, drop your guys' thoughts in the comments down below because I definitely will not get every single detail and you guys might agree, disagree. So just drop your guys' thoughts in the comments down below because I try to respond to all of your guys' comments. And for the first national team, it is South Korea, who finished in third place in Group A with 3 points. And my overall grade for them is a D. Man, South Korea was a little bit of a frustrating national team to watch from the Asian national teams because they are in that like top 3-4 mix in Asia. And for the fact that they made such a strong comeback against Czechia in the very first match of the World Cup, and for it to absolutely landslide from game 2 against Mexico to game 3 against South Africa was a huge disappointment. And obviously, I know the biggest culprit of this failure is their coach, Bo, who has stepped down after South Korea got eliminated at this World Cup, and rightfully so. At least he did do that. But I think myself and all South Korean football fans can agree he has been a huge detriment to this national team leading into this World Cup, at this World Cup. And it's really unfortunate because there were so many good players for South Korea. Yes, Sonny wasn't the guy anymore, and it was really weird seeing Son at this World Cup because there was still some expectation. He moved to LAFC. He had a really strong start for them. He's had a little bit of a weird season with them. Yes, he has 14 assists and he's leading MLS in assists, but hasn't scored a goal this season. Getting subbed out early against Mexico, not starting against South Africa, just kind of weird. He's not the guy anymore, but geez, in games where you kind of needed wins, you needed someone to give you a spark, you're not going to give Sonny more minutes or more opportunities to maybe do that. Lee Kong-in was also fairly disappointing. All the star power, the players that I thought would elevate South Korea maybe will show up in the big moments at this World Cup for their own varying reasons, just sadly didn't. I personally thought South Korea really turned a corner in that Czechia game to come back where I didn't think they were able to do something like that, where we've seen when they've gone down early in matches and qualifiers that they usually don't have that plan B or C to do so. I thought, okay, they were able to do it against Czechia. Maybe they lose against Mexico. Maybe they get a draw, but they surely should be able to do it against South Africa. And that was where I was like, man, this is truly rock bottom. Bo is definitely not going to be lasting as the coach for this national team. He absolutely dropped the ball for them. And I would love to give them a higher rating, but for the fact that they absolutely crumbled in game 2 and game 3 with very uninspiring performances, I don't know if I can justify a low C or even anything higher than that. The only reason they're not getting an F is because they were able to string a very strong second half performance against Czechia. But other than that, South Korea's World Cup was definitely disappointing. And maybe we will see some greener pastures for them now that they've made this coaching change. Yes, it definitely has been a detriment for the South Korean national team these last 3-4-ish years. Hopefully going into this Asian Cup, we see them have a deep run. And now moving on to Qatar, who finished in last place in Group B with 1 point. I'm going to give them a D+. plus. I know, everyone's gonna be coming at me with the pitchfork. Sean, how are you gonna grade Qatar higher than South Korea? For the expectations that South Korea had versus Qatar, if you're a realist, I had zero expectations for Qatar. I didn't think they were gonna get a single point. I thought they were gonna get walloped in every single match. And the reason I'm giving him that D plus is because of the 1 point they got against quarterfinalist Switzerland at this World Cup. Obviously, they got destroyed against Canada, destroyed against Bosnia, but the fact they were able to get a point against Switzerland still blows my mind. That was their toughest match, and they were able to get a point at this World Cup. Yes, it's not saying much that they got 1 point here, not saying that Qatar absolutely blew my mind, but for the expectations I had for them, getting that point definitely pips them a little bit above South Korea, who I thought could realistically have gotten 4 to 6 points in their group and actually gone out of the group. Qatar, there was no chance they were going to get out. Obviously, it wasn't ideal because they got that point, they set the tempo for themselves in their group, and then absolutely just landslided in game 2 and 3. Same exact theme as South Korea. I think there's definitely building blocks for Qatar under Lopetegui going into the Asian Cup, and I think they can definitely take the small positive of being able to get a point against Switzerland, a national team that has made a very deep run and has looked fairly convincing outside of, weirdly, the match against Qatar at this World Cup. I think Lopetegui's class really showed. His high quality tactical approach really showed in that game. So fair play to Qatar. You guys got a point. You got to show a little bit of respect there. But outside of that, it was about box standard on what we expected to happen for Qatar at this World Cup. And now moving on to Australia, who finished in second place in Group D and made it all the way to the round of 32 at the World Cup. So I'm going to give them a B+. So Australia, probably the best representatives from Asia at this World Cup. I think it could be a toss-up between Japan and Australia, but in my opinion, for the fact that Australia was a penalty shootout away from making the round of 16, I think they probably were Asia's best representatives at the 2026 World Cup. I would have loved to have given them like an A-, but the fashion on how they lost to Egypt, a national team that I most certainly thought they could beat, and the way that they lost in that PK shootout honestly was a little bit pathetic. Putting Sutar to go up first and putting an 18-year-old, someone who's never been in this position, up fourth, I believe, were such big mistakes. Australian fans are not happy with Popovich, too conservative, really silly decisions in the penalty shootout, honestly just silly decisions throughout the Egypt game, not taking it to them for the fact Egypt are relatively weak in that midfield and defense, and they could have bullied them in the game, but they let them walk all over them. After that match against Turkey, Australia kind of just slid down in my opinion. I think they played way too conservatively against the US, where I felt like if they really took it to them, starting Irakunda, who literally was man of the match in the previous game, they could have gotten a point there. They could have beaten Paraguay. They could have beaten Egypt. It was just too safe from them all in all. They risked it for the biscuit against Turkey, and they were like, you know what? That's all we're gonna do. Popovich definitely cut this team short at this World Cup. Really just didn't go full throttle, let the players express themselves. And that was their big time shortcoming here. The one thing I'm happy about is Australia yet again showed that at World Cups, regardless of what happened in qualifiers, could dig deep and get out of their group, even though most people didn't think they were going to get out of Group D. They finished second in that group against very challenging opponents. So you got to give them credit there. But in the knockout rounds against Egypt, I felt like that was a golden ticket for them to make it to the round of 16, get that first World Cup knockout win. We're just going to have to see what ends up happening, if Popovich is going to stay or not stay. You just got to make sure to find the right man that's going to bring the best out of this rising team, because I do think there's a nice mixture of young talent with experienced players. And at this Asian Cup, I think this could be a big opportunity for Australia to go on and win it. And next, moving on to Japan, who finished in second place in Group F and got knocked out in the round of 32 against Brazil. I'm going to give them a B. Again, maybe it might be a little bit controversial because Australia and Japan finished in the exact same spots at this World Cup, getting knocked out in the round of 32. The reason I just pip it a little bit over for Australia is their match could have gone either way. They lost in a penalty shootout, but Japan outright lost in the same fashion we've been seeing them lose in for the past couple of World Cups. Either it be a late goal, penalty shootout. This was literally a carbon copy for poor Japan at this World Cup. Yes, they were super unlucky to get Brazil in the round of 32, but this is not the Brazil of old. I felt like Japan really could have done the upset here, and they could have beaten Brazil. And it's so crazy. I don't know if any of you all saw this, but the goals that were scored in this Brazil-Japan match were almost identical times to the match between Japan Japan and Iran in the recent Asian Cup. Maybe Carlo Ancelotti was taking notes from Amr Khalanui from that match. I don't know, but I thought that was crazy when I saw that across social media. For Japan, I don't know what else to say other than this just felt like another rinse and repeat World Cup for them. They went toe-to-toe against the big national teams. They beat Tunisia. Then they make it to the knockout rounds. For large parts of the game, they look like they could make it happen, and then they just let it slip right at the end. Zion Suzuki was definitely one of the biggest winners, and I'm so happy to see his redemption arc from the Asian Cup to now, just showing if you stick with a player, even if they have a poor tournament, show that confidence in them, they could flourish. And Suzuki definitely showed that for Japan, and who knows, he could maybe lead them, be a catalyst for them at the Asian Cup. The proper full 180 redemption arc for Zion Suzuki. The question remains is Moriyasu gonna stay as Japan's coach after this World Cup? He's gone through 2 cycles with them now. And in my opinion, for national team coaches, that's kind of the point where your tenure expires in a sense. I just don't think there's much more you can get out from him. Japan are the best team from Asia, but at some point they gotta finally break through and make it past and win a game in the knockout rounds. They always punch above their waists in the group stages and friendlies against the high-tier national teams from Europe, South America. It doesn't matter. But they need to finally break this curse, and I don't know exactly how they're gonna do it, but it needs to happen. And it was so frustrating from all of us Asian fans, and I bet more specifically from the Japanese fans, to see the same thing happen yet again this World Cup, especially for how good they were in their group. They had a challenging group, and they still got out of it fairly comfortably with 5 points. We're just gonna have to see what the reaction is from the Japanese Football Federation, what they're gonna do to Moriyasu, and how they approach things at this upcoming Asian Cup. And next up is Iran, who finished in 3rd place in Group G with 3 points, going undefeated, but also not winning. So I've given them a C. I mean, we all know my countless opinions, videos I've already done on the channel about Iran at this World Cup. But of course, many of you might not watch my Iran-specific videos. So to briskly go back over it, the reality was Iran were probably in one of the easiest groups from all the Asian national teams. With their experience, they probably should have been able to get out of it. Yes, they went undefeated, but they weren't able to get one win. Especially when you have New Zealand in your group. I mean, yeah, I think a C is the best thing you can give them. I know there was a lot of struggles for Iran going into this World Cup externally, but at the end of the day, I still think this group was manageable for them. If they were in a really difficult group, maybe I would have been a little less harsh, but this group was a golden ticket for them. They should have been able to beat New Zealand regardless of the outside noise. Amr Khalanui needs to go kick rocks. I definitely want to see him do the same thing that we saw with South Korea, where their coach stepped down. I need to see that with Khalanui. I don't know in any man's right mind how he should stay going into the Asian Cup for Iran. He needs to go. Iran took the oldest squad at this World Cup. You would think with the experience of playing in 3 to 4 previous World Cups, they would be able to do it, but yet again, it's the same tale again. And I feel like I'm repeating myself with most of these national teams. I feel like with every single one of these Asian national teams, it was either predictable on how things finish for them, or it's just the same story we've spoken about in previous World Cups for each one of the more high-end ones. And it's no different here for Iran, as I mentioned for the other ones. Politics, coming up short, yes, getting unlucky, but just not doing the job, not having that X factor, cutting edge to win the game that they need to win is what cost them. And a lot of fingers being pointed at the coach. Same thing I talked about with the likes of Japan, Australia, South Korea. A lot of question marks going into this Asian Cup. But for Iran in particular, they have to make a coaching change. They have to make a positive one. They need to bring in a guy that was similar to what Carlos Queiroz did after Iran failed to qualify from the 2010 World Cup, and just rebuild this national team in this new generation, because this golden generation is done and dusted. Most of these players I do not want to see play anymore for this national team. And fingers crossed, yes, they might have to sacrifice this Asian Cup for greater success going into the next World Cup. I don't mind that at all if that's what has to happen, but we'll just have to wait and see. And now moving on to Saudi Arabia, who finished in last place in Group H with 2 points, so I'm going to give them a C-. I gotta say, I think Saudi Arabia actually did better than I expected. Getting 2 points, getting a draw against Uruguay, getting the draw against Cape Verde was way better than I expected. I thought they might have finished this group with no points. Sacking Hervé Renard months before the World Cup I thought was a really bad choice, but they started off this group really strong by getting that draw against Saudi Arabia. They needed to get the win against Cabo Verde. That definitely was their biggest shortcoming in this group, and then just getting absolutely destroyed by Spain was kind of expected. But if you got the win against Cape Verde, the big spanking by Spain wouldn't have really mattered, honestly. So they're kind of teeter-tottering between that D+, C-, but for the fact that they only did lose one game and I had no expectations for them because of the dumpster fire they were in going into this World Cup, you got to give them credit where credit is due. I just think it's crazy that Cabo Verde finished second in this group with just 3 points, not even winning a single match. And if they could have done it, I most definitely think Saudi Arabia could have done the exact same thing because they have so much World Cup experience. But at the end of the day, they weren't able to do it. They finished in last place. They did still have the same amount of points as Uruguay, which I don't know. What does that say about Uruguay? So I do have to give them credit there. There is going to be a lot of question marks for the Saudi Arabian team going into the Asian Cup. Are they going to try to make a high-profile managerial change before the tournament starts, or are they just going to stick with who they have because they've just gone through a World Cup with them? We'll just have to see. And now moving on to Iraq, who finished in last place in Group I with 0 points, and I gotta give them an F. It hurts me to say this, but Iraq were probably one of the worst national teams at this World Cup, and I most certainly have to give them an F. Might not be the last national team I'll give that rating to in this video, but yeah, 0 points, what, minus 11 goal differential? I know they were in a really tough group, but when you watch every single game, I felt like in parts of it, Iraq could have maybe stolen something in one of the games, but the mistakes that they made is what really cost them, that inexperience. I was really happy to see Ayman Hussein bag a goal, first World Cup goal for Iraq in what, 40 plus years for them. But I think the combination of the difficulty of the group, the inexperience, the slight obstacles they did have to face coming to America, all culminated to them being arguably one of the worst national teams at the World Cup. On a positive note though, I do think they have a small recipe of success going into the Asian Cup. They have a tough group in the Asian Cup, but Graham Arnold seems to have really bought in these players under his ethos. We saw that in some of the games against some really high-profile national teams. And if the players still believe in him, I think we could see something special for them at the Asian Cup. I just think it was way too difficult, a lot of pressure on them, the individual mistakes. It just really tore them down in this group. And when you play against high-end talent like you did, they're going to punish you in every single thing. This isn't the Asian qualifiers, Asian Cups. This is the World Cup against the biggest and baddest. And I could have maybe given them like a D or a D-, but the way they performed against Senegal, I just really couldn't justify it. And now moving on to Jordan, who finished in last place in Group J with 0 points. And yet again, I have to unfortunately give them an F. Jordan, from all the national teams, I'm gonna and have given an F2. I think there's a slight asterisk to it because I don't think they were that bad. I think they were the best of the 0-point Asian national team. Because when I watched all 3 games for Jordan, I felt like they were playing some really good football for large parts of it. But that inexperience, missing Al Naimat at this World Cup, just clearly hurt them. The goals they scored, the fashion that they were playing in, it was so nice to see it. I know, I'm a fraud. I predicted them to be a dark horse, finish as one of the 3rd place finishers. It didn't happen. Yes, I'm a little bit on fraud watch too. But you could tell that inexperience of not being able to kill off a game, defensively be strong once you at least had a draw in your pockets was the detriment for Jordan. But similar to Iraq, there could be some great building blocks for them going into the Asian Cup. We mustn't forget, they were finalists last Asian Cup. They could go on to win it now with this experience at a World Cup. I just wish they could have maybe won that tight game against Algeria. But clearly Algeria's experience of playing in World Cups, having those high-end players that have been there, done that, really helped them. But I would definitely hang your heads high to all the Jordanians watching. You guys had a pretty good World Cup, all things considered. And then finally moving on to Uzbekistan, who finished last in Group K with 0 points. I'm gonna have to give them an F as well. Uzbekistan and Iraq were probably the worst 2 Asian national team representatives. I know I got a lot of hate from the Uzbeks for how I thought they were gonna finish last in their group, and they did not impress really at all. And I think Cannavaro was the biggest problem for that, because there was moments in games, for example, like the game against Congo or the match against Colombia, where you get that goal, you get yourselves back in the game, or you're winning the game for large parts of it against Congo, but then you just completely capitulate. And that was the biggest problem I saw, because I felt like they could have at least gotten a point in one of those 2 games. And then you just absolutely lay down, roll over against Portugal, who have struggled throughout this World Cup. But again, I know I sound like a broken record. The experience that Uzbekistan were able to garner from this this World Cup and be able to score their first World Cup goal. At least they got that out the way. Fazulayev has written himself in folklore for Uzbekistan World Cup history. Could really help Uzbekistan in years to come, but the combination of inexperience, Cannavaro just being a very shoddy coach, was definitely the detriment to Uzbekistan at this World Cup. I do think at this upcoming Asian Cup, Uzbekistan could be the dark horses. I am excited to see how they do, but the reality was with what? About -8 goal differential, 0 points. You can't really give them anything higher than an F. So yeah, those are all my ratings for the Asian national teams at the 2026 World Cup. I would have loved for this video to have come out later, maybe seen a couple Asian national teams in the round of 16, but it ends for us fellow Asian football junkies in the round of 32. The World Cup started off so well for us, tailed off really, really bad. But hopefully in another 4 years to come, the Asian national teams will upset the world. We will surpass South America, surpass Europe, and be the top dogs in the Football Confederation. But boys and girls, as I always say at the end of every single video, my opinion only matters so much. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Do you guys agree, disagree with any of my opinions? They're just my opinions. They're completely subjective. I know you all probably have better expertise when it comes to certain national teams, so just let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. And if you're a big fan of Asian football, make sure to subscribe. Leading into the Asian Cup, we're gonna have loads of content talking about that tournament, so make sure to subscribe. Smash the like button on this video. Let's try to get over 300 likes. And if you guys enjoyed this video, don't stop watching now, as I have countless other fantastic videos across my channel. So make sure to click this video next, as the YouTube algorithm specifically recommended this video for you all to watch next. And click over here, as I post content weekly on the channel and you don't want to miss it. But boys and girls, I hope you'll have a lovely day.